Good evening, I'm Greer McGearey, and with me tonight is Brenda Appleton, who is Chair of Transgender Victoria.
Good evening, and delighted to join you.
And Brenda, it's been a wonderful time, I suppose, for you and Transgender Victoria, or all trans people in Victoria, with the passing of the birth certificate legislation. What I'd like to explore tonight is maybe the timeline and just the difficulties in being able to get it up to the progress of passing. So what was your first involvement with this legislation?
I got involved probably about 9 years ago on trying to make progress with birth certificate reform. I think the trans community in fact started this journey some 25-30 years ago. I particularly got involved then, and it was at a time when Labor was in opposition, and we were particularly working with Labor to try and ensure that birth certificate reform was included on their agenda for the election in 2014. And so we were able to lobby with Daniel Andrews at that time and get a commitment from Labor that they would support birth certificate reform.
At that point there, what did you find the biggest challenge, or how about getting involved with the politicians? What was the biggest challenge you found?
I think we were coming off a very conservative base. At that time, to change the sex marker on a birth certificate, you had to be single. So if you're in a married situation and happy to stay together, you couldn't change your birth certificate without going through a divorce. You had to have surgery. You couldn't have other than male and female. And at that time, if you're under 18, you couldn't change your birth certificate. So there were a lot of key points that we needed to engage with the politicians on. And I guess there's much more awareness amongst politicians today than there was then. So there was a lot of talking to do, and really just highlighting the need for human rights.
One of the intriguing things that I sort of find in where to start getting involved with the politicians, is it just a case of ringing up a particular politicians, or did you have to contact the underlings, as it were, to sort of say, well, I need to arrange appointments, and how many knockbacks would you have had?
Well, at that stage, we worked with Daniel Andrews. So Daniel Andrews did a great job connecting with the LGBTI community to find out what we wanted in the Labor manifesto. So we were walking into a supportive environment with him, and he actually approached the community, and a number of LGBTI leaders met with him on a regular basis. And we worked through health issues and employment issues and housing issues and rights issues for LGBTI people. Subsequently, Labor got into Parliament, and they did introduce a bill in 2016. That bill got defeated in the upper house. But leading up to that bill, it was a matter then of contacting individual MPs, arranging to meet with them. By then I was the co-chair of the LGBTI task force, so that certainly helped open a lot of doors for me to be able to meet with people. But it's a long, slow process.
I can imagine seeing you on the phone and ringing people and getting knockbacks, and then say, yes, we can get our calendars in sync. So yeah, that must take a bit of a personal toll on your health and well-being in pushing forward on behalf of other people.
Yes, and back in 2016 and again this year. So this year I spoke with the office, or the person of every backbencher, upper house and lower house, and I engaged with a wide range of politicians from Labor and the Coalition. And it does take a toll. And in many instances you find very homophobic and transphobic people, and that can be very painful. And many a time I wanted to walk out of a meeting that I was having and didn't, but certainly there's some people that I would never want to meet with again. And I think it's rather sad that our Parliament has a significant number of people who are of that ilk.
What sort of personal support did you have while you're conducting all this negotiations and contacts and the like?
So by no means was I the only one doing it. So there's quite a number from the trans community and allies. And I think I was heavily involved with the marriage equality debate and lead up to the passing of the legislation. And again, we learnt the value of allies there. So in this particular case, we had quite a group of mainly LGBTI people who were providing support to the trans community, helping to open doors, joining us when we needed help, helping with promotional campaigns, writing material and that sort of thing. So the Equality Australia in particular provided a lot of support. And I think it actually helped bring a lot of the trans and gender diverse community together as well. We worked fairly hard to ensure that voices were heard.
Yeah, particularly after the defeat of the bill going the first time and being defeated in the upper house, so that it obviously showed that there was a reasonable amount of support for the bill. How much of a challenge was it to get back up off the floor as it was with you and the support mechanism that you've got?
So the bill was defeated in 2016 and the Labor government, Andrew's Labor government, were unable to introduce the same bill in the same term of Parliament. So we continued to work with Labor to ensure that it was a prominent area of support going into the 2018 election. And it was a matter then of ensuring that it remained a fairly high priority for the government. It took some effort to fight the fight again. I personally came in for a fair bit of criticism in 2016 in being involved with the bill and failing to find a way for the community to be better off. And I think there was a feeling that we needed to have compromised on the bill. We should have negotiated with the Liberal opposition to try and get it through. But if we'd gone through that process, we would have left some people behind, and we were keen not to do that.
I would have imagined that by compromising you're really shortchanging, as you started to allude to, certain individuals that really needed the original bill. So obviously then comes the 2018 election and it was able to be put forward again. On that build-up and those last few days before it went to a vote, what was the intensity like, as it were?
It was very intense. I guess we've learnt the power of stories. So we were able to arrange for a considerable cross-section of the trans and gender diverse community to meet with politicians and for them to tell them how their lives had been impacted by not being able to change their documents, or for younger people how it was impacting on their ability to be able to attend school in the way that they would want, or for other young people being able to get employment whilst at school, whilst saving for university. So we engaged, I was involved on a daily basis in meeting with different politicians and trying to get out those stories as much as we could, make it a real life thing.
Of course, then on the day, you're all in the gallery, I can imagine, and the vote is taken and the bill is passed. What was the feeling amongst yourself, the whole gallery?
Tears of relief. So we had it in the lower house and it passed fairly easily there because Labor has the majority. It then went to the upper house and I guess we were very hopeful that it would pass there because there was a lot of crossbench, and I had met with all of them and was fairly sure where they would vote. But you never know until that vote actually happens. And no, we were as a community, absolutely delighted when it passed. It seems amazing that we are the 5th state or territory to have this sort of reform. We like to think that Victoria is at the forefront of LGBTI rights, but in this case, ACT, Northern Territories, South Australia and Tasmania all were passed their legislation before we did.
Well, Brenda, it's really nice just to briefly put out the journey of getting the bill through Parliament and that, and what I'd like to be able to say is thank you for you, Transgender Victoria, and all those others in the various committees who put forward their personal stories to the politicians to get this bill passed, because it makes a big relief to so many people, not necessarily myself at this stage, but at least going forward, I think it just takes away one of those dreads that hangs over you, for the future. And thank you very much, because I think it's most important that people such as yourself, the organisations such as Transgender Victoria and everyone else that's involved, and it's not possible to name everyone in this instance, but I think a big thank you for what you've done, representing not only just Transgender Victoria, but every one of us, and for the wonderful jobs you've done. As I said, I found it wonderful just to sort of think back and think, oh, I'm glad I'm not the person that's doing it, because while I've had some involvements in lower level of social support, I can't see myself fronting up to politicians day in, day out.
Well, it's a battle that's got to be had, and I think that having had that one, but unfortunately those that wanting to change their birth certificates have to wait until 1st of May next year. There's a lot of processes and procedures to be finalised, and births, deaths and marriages are working through that now, and but the community will look forward to 1st of May.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm Greer McGearey, and thank you for watching tonight. My guest tonight has been Brenda Appleton, Chair of Transgender Victoria.
Thanks, Greer.